Here are William Lane Craig's ideas about how historians ought to evaluate the crucifixion narrative.
The best explanation for these facts is that God raised Jesus from the dead. In his book, Justifying Historical Descriptions, historian C.B. McCullough lists 6 tests which historians use in determining what is the best explanation of given historical facts. The hypothesis, God raised Jesus from the dead, passes all these tests. Number 1, it has great explanatory scope. It explains why the tomb was found empty, why the disciples saw appearances of Jesus, why the Christian faith came into being. 2, it has great explanatory power. It explains why the body of Jesus was gone, why people repeatedly saw Jesus alive despite his earlier public execution, and so forth. 3, it is plausible. Given the historical context of Jesus' own unparalleled life and claims, the resurrection serves as divine confirmation of those radical claims.
No, it fucking doesn't. This argument seems to boil down to Jesus was weird, therefore he was plausibly a god incarnate. On what fucking planet is this not a completely batshit crackpot conclusion to make?
4, it is not ad hoc or contrived. It requires only one additional hypothesis, that God exists. And even that need not be an additional hypothesis if you already believe in the existence of God, as Dr. Ludemann and I do.
This is not the only additional assumption you have to make. You have to assume that a god exists and that this god is an interventionist one rather than a deist one.
5, it is in accord with accepted beliefs. The hypothesis, God raised Jesus from the dead, does not in any way conflict with the widely accepted belief that people don't rise naturally from the dead.
But it's not consistent with the widely held belief that people don't rise from the dead fucking period. Also, this point is only going to be compelling to theists.
The Christian agrees as wholeheartedly with that belief as he agrees with the hypothesis that God raised Jesus from the dead. And finally, number 6, it far outstrips any of its rival theories in meeting conditions 1 to 5.
I'm not a historian, so I don't know to what degree these standards are really the standards that historians use, but if they are, they should add an additional standard. If an explanation for historical facts requires us to assume the occurrence of an event heretofore understood to be impossible, then it ought to be discarded. Mere testimony, no matter how multiply and independently attested, no matter how ad hoc all other explanations are, never warrants belief in such an occurrence.
Down through history, various rival explanations of the facts have been proposed. For example, the conspiracy theory, the apparent death theory, the hallucination theory, and so forth. Such hypotheses have been almost universally rejected by contemporary scholarship. No naturalistic hypothesis has attracted a great number of thinkers.
This is a bare argument from authority.
But if that is the case, then why, we may ask, does Dr. Ludemann reject the resurrection hypothesis?
I can tell you why I reject it. Resurrections have never been confirmed to occur. Shared delusions and hoaxes are far more common than resurrections. Even if scientists someday witness a person being resurrected, it would be the only confirmed resurrection. It would still be outnumbered by confirmed cases of hoaxes and shared delusions. Therefore, those would still be more probable explanations for the accounts of Jesus' post-mortem appearances.
Well, as you read his book, the answer becomes clear. The resurrection is a miracle. And Professor Ludemann just cannot bring himself to believe in miracles. He states, historical criticism does not reckon with an intervention of God in history. Thus, the resurrection cannot be historical. It goes out the window before you even sit down at the table to look at the evidence.
And reasonably so, because the only evidence that would warrant belief in a miracle would be evidence collected in a controllable environment via repeatable experiments yielding clear results. Under no circumstances is testimonial evidence, even of the most reliable kind, sufficient. I don't know if you've heard, but I do have a Patreon.